welcome back to Thornhill's online learning program. So we have finished our topic, which was the Atlantic slave trade, and we are moving on to another topic. So today's topic will be the scramble for Africa. So before we proceed, I would like for us to define the word scramble in this particular context. So scramble means to rush for or to struggle with others to get something. So the scramble for Africa was the rush by European powers to acquire territories in Africa. The scramble resulted in the partition of Africa and active colonial rule in Africa. So the rule came after the Germany unification that happened in 1871. Before we proceed, I would like for us to understand the meaning of partition. So partition means division into parts. So we've said scramble means to rush for or to struggle with others to get something. Partition means division into parts. So the partition of Africa was therefore the period during which Africa was divided into sections which went to various European nations as their shares from the scramble. I'll go through it again. The scramble for Africa was the rush by European powers to acquire territories in Africa. So the scramble resulted in the partition of Africa, which we have said was the division of Africa into parts. So the scramble resulted into the partition of Africa and active colonial rule. So active nations included France, Germany, Britain, Belgium, and Portugal. So in order to avoid conflicts or an outbreak of war, these nations agreed to hold a conference in Berlin, that is in Germany, in the years 1884 to 1885, under the initiative of the German Chancellor Bismarck. The conference came to be known as the Berlin Conference, or in other books it's referred to as the Berlin Colonial Conference. The purpose of the treaty was to find a peaceful way of settling international disputes and agree on how to divide and share Africa among themselves. So at the end of this conference, the Berlin Treaty was signed, which laid down conditions by which the scramble was to be conducted. Among other terms of the treaty were: 1. The Niger and Zaire rivers would be open to free trade. The second point in this treaty was that, to avoid any clash of claim, members were immediately informed if one of the nations acquired a territory. So if Britain came and acquired Zambia, they had to inform France and say Zambia is ours. 3. Whenever there were clashes of claims, which we know that in certain instances countries fought over a territory, the powers concerned would come to an agreement by treaties. The last point was that slavery was to be abolished in the occupied areas. So we have said that the scramble for Africa was the rush by European powers to acquire African territories. This scramble for Africa resulted in the partition of Africa, meaning that Africa was divided into parts. A conference was held to discuss how Africa would be partitioned, also to avoid conflicts between these European powers in case they both claimed the same territory. They may have said at the end of this conference a treaty was signed, and the conditions were the Niger and Zaire rivers would be open to free trade. To avoid any clash of claims, members were immediately informed if one of the nations acquired a territory. So like the example I gave, if Britain said Zambia is our territory, other nations had to be informed and told that Zambia is now a territory belonging to Britain. Whenever there were clashes of claims, which was very possible, and we know that certain countries clashed over certain territories, the powers concerned would come to an agreement by treaties. Then the last point was that slavery was to be abolished in the occupied areas. So as we had been doing in our previous lessons, at the end of this lesson there will be an exercise for you to attempt, and we will discuss the answers in our next lesson. So our next topic will be the causes for the scramble of Africa. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to you joining me next time. Enjoy.